Sean. Thanks everybody for sticking around here. We are at the second half of the press conference here. We're joined by four great head coaches representing their respective institutions here for the NCAA championships. From your right to your left, we have Sean Bormet of Michigan, Iowa's Tom Brands, Pat Popolizio of North Carolina State, and Arizona State's Zeke Jones. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Best of luck this week. As a reminder to the media, both here in the room and also on Zoom, if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and wait for a microphone to make it your way. We are recording these press conferences, and as I mentioned, it is airing on Zoom. Please introduce yourself and your affiliation, and then for the folks on Zoom, if you're interested in asking a question, please let us know in the chat. We will go to those questions near the end. With that, we'll go ahead and open up the questions for any of these head coaches, and please introduce yourself and direct your question as appropriate. Thank you. Go on the front row.
Hi, this is actually a two-part question for all of you, possibly, and it deals with the qualifiers that y'all have gone through. Obviously, the situation with medical forfeits and such are understandable for the health of the athlete, but it does determine a team race. Should that actually just determine like a Big Ten or Pac-10 or any other championship, or should you just go through a qualifier? And the other thing is, the second part is just that not all qualifiers have the same number of teams. Therefore, say the Big Ten, if there's 14 teams, more wins you have to go to qualify. Should we make changes so that all qualifiers are more balanced?
Let's just go straight down the line, starting with Sean with that one.
I mean, I think we've seen a trend in some of the medical forfeits, and even in some of the stuff throughout the dual season. Throughout the entire season, I think there's been a trend of that. We didn't see as much of it, I think, during the COVID year because we didn't have as many matches. But this year, I think there was a lot of, glaring issues that we got to look at and address within the sport, because I think there's definitely some valid reasons that these things happen. I think there's some things, that at times, let's face it, we get a lot of smart coaches and they're trying to do the best thing for their athletes at different times. Whether that's with RPIs or head-to-head competition, and we don't want. I think we don't want incentives. We don't want to incentivize that with a system in our sport because it doesn't make sense for the big picture. So there's definitely some areas I think we have to revisit going forward.
I would agree that you need to look at it maybe closer. I don't necessarily have the answers. That's not where I would put my energy. I can tell you that we do make individual decisions that are best for our individuals consistently. So that's what I would say our job as coaches, that's where our priority is always. And we'll let the rules makers, make it better. And this sport is in a good place, and it can certainly get in a better place, but things like that maybe need to be cleaned up and looked at. So
yeah, I mean, I think the system right now there's a lot of positive to it, having the conference tournament where our fans enjoy watching our teams compete in conference. And it could be interesting if a committee ever tried to move something to a more regional setting. But either way, you got to take care of your athletes, put them in the right position to be healthy for this tournament, because this is where a lot of it lies.
Thanks for letting me answer that last. I can just say they did a great job. I'll stop there and let them move on to the next question. Good job, you guys.
Sounds good. What else do we have for these head coaches? And please wait for the mic. Second row here.
This is for Sean Bormet, Scary Abbott with USA Wrestling. Obviously, winning the conference was a big boost for your program, and the program you've worked really hard to develop since you've become the head coach. But what would it mean to you to win in Detroit? I mean, this group of athletes proved they could win a conference tournament that was very competitive. What would this be for the athletes and for the program for you to go out of here with that trophy sitting over there?
I mean, obviously, winning a Big Ten championship, was special for our program. It hadn't been done in a while. It was, part of the mission when we brought this Team 100 together. But, we had to keep that in perspective, let the guys soak it in for a day, and then get refocused, because, the bigger part of our mission, the goal is to come here and put our best wrestling on the mat in Detroit. And it's, we've been second numerous times as a team over our 100-year history. But the ultimate will be winning here in Detroit for our program.
In the back there.
Andrew Destin, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Coach Bormet, going off the last question, you guys after the Big Tens, Penn State definitely kept the pressure on with you guys there at the conference tournament. What kind of presence do they pose here now in Detroit? What kind of pressure do they put on you guys? And I guess, what are you expecting from them?
I mean, to be honest, that's a funny word. It can be, defined in a lot of different ways. I mean, obviously our guys know, what we're trying to accomplish is something special, and along with that comes, the privilege of a lot of pressure. And our guys know that, and they're excited about it. We haven't really, I think this is going to be one of the greatest NCAA championships we've had in a long time from an individual perspective, with so many of these guys getting the extra years. It's like one of the most elite fields I think we've ever had in the history of the NCAA tournament. I think there's a lot of, the team race is going to be really fun and exciting, and, we haven't really focused too much on the other teams. I mean, we were really focused on what we need to do and have our guys ready to wrestle with our ultimate best, and that's really been our focus.
Third row here.
Andrew Spade with Flow Wrestling. For a question for Coach Brands, you mentioned how wrestling's in a really good place, and I think we're in a really nice facility here, and Iowa's coming off the national championship, and then you add a women's program, and you break ground on new facilities. Can you talk about the changes that you've seen that has now got wrestling in a place where you can have those new things like a women's program at a Power 5 conference and wrestle in Globe Life Field, and now here in an arena like this?
Yeah, I would focus more on arenas like this and the leadership, the current leadership that makes this possible. We're a big-time city and a big-time arena. The organization's great. You got 2022 signs everywhere. This is big time. It's on par with the best in sports, and that's a credit to the NCAA and the fans that show up and support this. So that's what I mean by that. And when you have that kind of leadership, you have the opportunity to grow on every campus and make it stronger and better, and people turn their heads because it is in a big time setting.
Additional questions for the head coaches, please. Coach, you touched on it. Well, here we are. You're in the second row.
This question was for Coach Jones. In the Lehigh duel this year, there were 2 extra matches in which the ASU wrestler injury defaulted after 1 second. Could you tell us how that conversation with the Lehigh coaches went to arrive at that?
I can't answer that, but what I can tell you is they're coming to the end of the year, right? And there's X amount of matches to meet the criteria for an allocation spot in the conference meets. And I think it was already answered down at the end of the table. I think the coaches are trying to do the best thing for their athletes. They're trying to ensure that they're qualified and they get to the NCAA tournament and they're in those spots. It wasn't an advantage to us, the advantage was to Lehigh. And I just think that until we do something with the qualification system, you're going to see that happen. And I wouldn't blame any coach to do what's best for their athlete to try to get to the NCAA tournament. I think that's kind of a fast answer.
Question here in the third row.
Christian Powell's Flow Wrestling. Question for Coach Popolizio. Hayden Hidley came back after last year, sort of on the fence, goes up a couple weights. Can you talk about the decision, how much it's helped him that he's moved up to 174, and what the dynamic is like with him and Trent back to back?
Yeah. First of all, it was an interesting recruiting process. It was like recruiting a kid all over again. Had to talk these guys to come back for that 6th year, which we were grateful to have them. But yeah, having him up 2 weights was something, he made that decision. If he was going to come back, it was going to be more focused on getting better at wrestling and not so much the weight cut. And we've seen that. We've seen him get better at wrestling. And having both those guys in our lineup bring a lot of really good energy, focus, and just what you're looking for ultimately in an athlete that can help lead us to where we want to be here this weekend.
This question's for Coach Jones. Zeke, about a year ago, Stanford had dropped wrestling. We were coming into this tournament. People didn't have any clue what was going to happen with the Pac-12. 12 months later, obviously, not only Stanford back, but you've got teams like Cal Poly stepping up. Oregon State is within a half a point of you guys. What's it looking like out west right now?
Yeah, that's great. You guys are giving me the tough questions, huh? I would say that the West is in its best shape it's ever been, Gary, right? I think Stanford, there was a stand, right, in the West that said that wrestling's important. We're going to continue to work hard at it. I say collectively as in the West, the folks, athletic departments and people, really the communities, right? Because that was really a community effort that stepped up and said, hey, Stanford wrestling's important and it should remain. I've also, Anthony Holman's made a comment, and I say it often, the NCAA doesn't look at the West as a dying area, but a growth opportunity. Because we know that youth wrestling is very strong in the West Coast. And so if you're looking at where you can grow the wrestling market, I mean, in reality, I mean, Pennsylvania is always strong, but it's already maxed itself out. It'll get a 1 or 2% growth, but if you start to look at the West, that can be a tremendous growth opportunity where we can grow the options for kids in the West to be able to wrestle at the collegiate level. So I think when we're looking at an NCAA championship, hosting that out in the West is something I think the NCAA is focused on, and it matters and they care about it. Certainly, we'd love to host it. I think it's, and then there's some great places in the West, not just Phoenix, but LA or Las Vegas. And I think athletic directors are looking at the West and saying, is wrestling the right ad? I think certainly for women's wrestling, we know that it's not an if, it's a when, as it pertains to growing in the West and adding more collegiate programs. And then as we know, California is consistently one of the best teams in the states in the country for recruiting, and the best kids in the country are coming out of California, which has been great for us and for all programs. So I think the West is in a great spot for growing, for growth, and getting better. Obviously, there are some obstacles. We know it costs money to start a Division I program, but I do think that when you're looking at people that can help fund it and endow it, if you all know or can remember, our athletic director, Ray Anderson, is a visionary. We added men's ice hockey to Phoenix, Arizona. I know it sounds odd, but $32 million made that happen. And that came from a couple gracious donors. So I think if we're organized, I think if we get the right people at the table and the right programs, we can grow wrestling at the Division I level in the West. And last comment, because you just mentioned it, and I want to make sure I say it. We just passed an important policy within the Pac-12 that says that we can grow the conference as big as we want. We used to be in a situation where we couldn't grow it past 6 teams, and we all know the challenges if you drop below 5 teams in a conference. But right now, we're looking at going to 8, 10, or 12 teams in the Pac-12. So I think we're in the best, and that's over a decade-long policy the Pac-12 has had, that now we can grow the Pac-12. So it's something that the conference, the coaches, and the athletic directors have made that an important mission after the season to focus on.
Additional questions for our head coaches here? In the second row, and just a reminder, if we do have any questions on Zoom, please let us know in the chat.
JP Pearson, Black Shoe Diaries. Another question for Coach Jones, an easy one. You picked up Eric Thompson as an assistant coach this year. I was wondering how he has helped the program and Colton Schultz specifically improve.
Yeah, we brought Eric Thompson in specifically to work with Colton Schultz, and he's done a fantastic job. Obviously, we know he came from the Penn State group, and we know how good their upper weights and heavyweights have been. So, we're grateful to have Coach Thompson come in, as well as Frank Molinaro and Mark Perry all came in with the last year. So, I think we have a world-class coaching staff, and Coach Thompson, Molinaro, Perry, and of course Lee Pritz has been there a long time. But Eric's been a tremendous add for the program and has made us a lot better. Thank you for that softball.
All right, guys, we'll get you out of here with this. We know that this weekend's going to be, the first time with fans in a couple years at this championship. Expecting a really good atmosphere. Talk about just getting back to that normal setting and playing or wrestling in front of some fans here in Detroit. Go down the line.
Yeah, I mean, like I touched on earlier, I think not only is it one of the best fields we've ever had from a competitor standpoint at this year's NCAA championships, but after 2 years not having fans, and for us, specifically having it here in our backyard in Detroit. I mean, Detroit's, I landed here. I'm from the Chicago suburbs, but I landed in Michigan as a freshman in the fall of 1989. I've spent a lot of significant years around this area, so to really watch Detroit over the last 30 years, a city just very resilient, gritty, amazing people. Watch this city transform and have this NCAA championships here in our 100th year of Michigan wrestling. It's just really special. I think it's going to be an unbelievable event.
Tom?
Yeah, I have two things to say to that. I heard that the bid for this championships was put in and accepted before this facility was built. I don't know if that's true, but that's awesome testament to vision. That would be one. I said it earlier, we're in a big time city, in a big time arena. That's awesome as well. And then speak for our team a little bit. We got some guys that, it's been alluded to, the 6th year, the COVID year. They're tight and they make each other better, and last chance, a lot of them. So it's time to go, Detroit 2022.
Yeah, I think this one's more for the athletes. The year that we had no fans in the stands, it was definitely unique and different, but to have everyone back here and the energy that's going to be in play, I think it's going to be real important. And obviously it's going to be some of the best wrestling with having these 6-year guys in here, along with some of the young talent that all these teams have. So we're looking for a really good NCAA tournament.
I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, born and raised. I'm home. I love it. I'm so happy to be here. A lot of friends and family coming back. This is like home court advantage for me, and these fantastic coaches have great teams. We're excited. I think we get to hide out in the West. You guys don't pay attention to us very often. We use that to our advantage. I'd like to think we can sneak up on some people. We have 7 returning All-Americans, so maybe not so easy to sneak up this year, but looking forward to some great competition, looking forward to seeing a lot of my family and friends here at this competition, this tournament, and it's going to be a fun fight for the championship, and let's have some fun.
Last call for questions. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate